A lawyer named Alan decides to take on a case against one big pharmaceutical company, which could make or break his career. He assigns Tom, a legal assistant, to handle the paperwork. On Monday, Tom needs to update his keycard before entering the office since they are reset every weekend. With John, who was their main witness, now dead, Tom asks Alan if he can include victims of heart attacks in the case. Alan refuses, saying that adding minor victims wouldn't make them any money. About a week earlier, at the Denning Pharmaceutical headquarters, John, a former worker, had entered the elevator. He opened his suitcase and showed that he had a gun inside. Once on the executive floor, he quickly killed several top company people, then returned to the reception area where he encountered police officers. John said someone had to do something before self-deleting. Following John's tragic act, news reports revealed that Denning Pharmaceutical was introducing a new drug. Even though it had caused serious side effects leading to 3 deaths, the drug was still being approved by the FDA. The company was now facing a huge lawsuit, and their stock prices were dropping, so they were doing everything they could to hide the evidence. Back in the present day, later that same day, Tom is called to the office of another boss to discuss a case involving the Gambisi crime family. Tom had sent a memo expressing interest in joining the case, but his boss throws it away and scolds him for not focusing on the cases he already has. Afterwards, Tom goes to the file room to store a file that Alan rejected. His co-worker and girlfriend, Anna, visits him there, and they share a few secret kisses. A few hours later, Alan announces that since the servers have been down since last night, everyone can leave. Before Tom can leave, Alan tells him that he made a dangerous mistake with his earlier memo, and he fires him for it. In the elevator, Tom is joined by a man he's never seen before. When they reach the reception, the man leaves a suitcase on the floor. Another person picks it up and takes the elevator, which makes Tom suspicious. After checking which floor the man went to, Tom tries to follow him, but his keycard has already been reset. Trying to leave, Tom sees the stranger waiting for something outside. Worried, he asks the guard to activate the elevator for him. Once Tom makes it to the office, he looks around and finds his coworker Roger sitting at his desk for some unknown reason. He asks Roger to open the door, but Roger acts strangely. Tom notices the file he had put away earlier is on the desk. Feeling suspicious, Tom starts recording on his phone and hides it in a pencil holder. Tom keeps investigating and finds the mysterious man tampering with the power box. A lawyer approaches the man and asks for his ID. The man claims to be from maintenance, but the lawyer doesn't believe him. When the lawyer tries to call and confirm his presence, the man pulls out a gun and kills her. While the killer drags the body away, Tom rushes to the bathroom and finds the body of the security guard in the stall. When Tom checks on the guard, the toilet sensor activates and flushes. To stay hidden, Tom climbs on top of the toilet to avoid being seen. The killer enters the bathroom, washes the blood off his face, and talks to the body, mentioning that he will need the keys. Tom manages to sneak into another stall just before the killer takes the keys, gun, and radio from the dead body. Trying to stay hidden, Tom climbs onto the toilet, nearly triggering the flush. But luckily, the killer activates the other toilet first, and Tom remains undetected. The killer destroys the radio and leaves to turn off the fire sprinkler before heading into the file room, where he sets up explosives. Meanwhile, Tom runs to the break room and finds Roger. He warns him about the killer, and the two of them rush to the elevator. Unfortunately, the elevator isn't working, so they try the emergency exit. However, the killer has already broken the exit bar, and they can't open the door. They end up going back to the main area and attempt to use the reception computer, but the internet is down. Tom notices the killer is approaching, so they quickly hide. Despite their efforts, the killer realizes the computer has been used and becomes suspicious. He disconnects the computer, then enters the desk area and reveals that he also has a keycard. Once he's out of sight, Tom and Roger leave their hiding place and try to figure out what to do next. Tom grabs Roger's keycard and uses it to open the door to the executive offices to find Alan. He sends Roger to find his phone and call the police. As Tom activates the lock, he drops his jacket and it gets stuck in the door. While Tom looks for Alan, Roger goes to his desk to make a phone call to his wife. But before he can say anything, the killer finds Roger and forces him to lie, saying everything is fine. Tom sees everything from the window and rushes to the break room to grab a knife. After Roger hangs up, the killer pulls out his gun and asks if anyone else is working late. Roger lies again and says it's just him, so the killer takes a cable and begins to choke him. Tom's phone records everything. By the time Tom returns, Roger is gone. He picks up his phone and tries to call 911, but the battery dies. After plugging in the charger, Tom looks around and finds Roger's body sitting in his chair. Just then, the killer returns, sees the jacket stuck in the door, and realizes someone is hiding. Tom takes Roger's keycard and hides in a closet where he's startled by the lawyer's body. The killer drags Roger's body, making a call to complain about how no one was supposed to be up there. Suddenly, Tom's phone gets enough charge to ring. The killer picks it up, dismisses Anna's call, and then discovers the video recording of the murder. He immediately deletes it and checks the settings to find Tom's name and photo. Realizing who Tom is, the killer calls out his name, but Tom stays hidden. After the killer leaves, Tom rushes to another office and sets some paper on fire, hoping to trigger the fire alarm, but it doesn't work. As he looks around, he notices someone in the neighboring building. Tom makes a bigger flame in the trash can and pushes it against the curtains to create a real fire. This catches the attention of the neighbor, and Tom gestures for help. Unfortunately, the killer smells the smoke and rushes into the room with a fire extinguisher to put out the flames. Tom sees him and quickly runs away. The killer enters the room and begins extinguishing the fire. Then he pretends to be using the phone, hoping the neighbor won't try to call for help. A few minutes later, Tom makes his way to the reception and uses the computer to create a new keycard. The killer almost catches him, but Tom puts the computer into sleep mode and hides under the desk. After the killer leaves, Tom resets all the locks, so the killer can no longer use his keycard. Then, Tom turns off most of the building's lights and rushes to Alan's office, only to find him talking to a woman. Suddenly, the killer shoots the office lock, and Tom hides behind the door. The killer seems to know Alan, but when the woman pulls out a gun, the killer immediately kills her. He takes her gun and leaves, telling Alan to stay in his office. Afterward, Tom asks Alan who the woman was, and Alan explains she was part of the Gambisi crime family. She was supposed to testify against her husband, so Alan suspects the killer was sent by the mafia to silence her. Just then, they hear the killer trying to break into the file room with an axe. However, it's impossible to break through because the door is made of reinforced steel and bulletproof glass. Alan and Tom try to escape, but they have to hide when they hear the killer coming. The killer arrives with a janitor and imitates his voice, asking Tom to come out or he'll die. Tom, feeling suspicious, asks what nickname the janitor always used, and the killer fails to answer, which makes Tom realize the janitor is already dead. Next, the killer turns the elevators back on, trying to force them out. Alan and Tom check the hallway and find the janitor's body with a note that reads, "You win." Then, they hear a phone ring and rush to the desk, only for Tom to be shocked when he sees that it's his own number calling. Alan guesses it's a trap and tries to escape, but the killer shoots him in the arm. The two men start running, with the killer chasing them and firing at them. They manage to hide in an office and lock the door. Unfortunately, the door isn't reinforced, so the killer uses the axe to break it down. By the time he catches up with them, they're already entering the file room. Tom tries to use the killer's phone to call for help, but it's locked with a password. The killer still has Tom's phone, and since it doesn't require a PIN, he texts Anna and asks her to come over. Desperate to save her, Tom comes up with an idea and starts using the copy machine. When Anna arrives, the killer holds her at gunpoint and demands her phone to destroy it. At this point, Tom steps in and offers to trade the keycard for Anna's safety. The killer is not convinced until Alan arrives and helps with the negotiations. Once the gun is dropped, Alan grabs the keycard and hands it to the killer, who lets Anna go but pulls out a guard's gun. Alan tries to push the killer, hoping to save Anna, but the killer punches him and drags him toward the file room. Inside the file room, the killer complains that Alan didn't clear out the office, suggesting they've been working together. He then activates the explosives. Tom arrives with a gun, but the killer reveals that the gun is empty. Alan takes the opportunity to run, and the door slams shut, locking the killer inside. The killer tries to use the keycard to escape, but Tom had swapped it for a fake one he made using the copy machine. Suddenly, the explosives go off, setting fire to the file shelves. The killer struggles to put out the flames, but fails and eventually passes out from the smoke. Tom enters the file room, throws the gun aside, and tries to extinguish the fire by knocking over the shelf. All of a sudden, the killer wakes up and attacks Tom. They start fighting, and the killer quickly gains the upper hand. Anna runs in to help, but she gets hit and knocked down. Tom uses this moment to strike back and punches the killer. They both fall to the ground, and that's when Alan appears and shoots the killer. As the killer is dying, he whispers the numbers 11 to 22. Tom takes the keys from his pocket. Anna uses those keys to turn the elevators back on. Meanwhile, Tom goes back to the desks and finds the case file. He discovers that the pharmaceutical company wanted to destroy all the proof. Then he types 1122 on the killer's phone and unlocks it. He finds Alan's number saved there. Tom realizes Alan was paid by the drug company to make sure they lose the case on purpose. Alan hired the killer to destroy the files and kill Roger. Alan tries to explain, saying big companies are worse than the mafia. He offers Tom money to stay quiet, but Tom refuses. He takes the file and walks away. Not wanting to go to prison, Alan self-deletes. Soon, the police arrive. Tom quickly escapes with Anna before they are seen. Inside the file room, the copy machine is still working. It's printing many copies of the case documents. A police officer finds this. He's the same one who gave the killer the gun earlier. He sees Tom's phone in the dead killer's hand. Then he calls a hitman and tells him to go after Tom to silence him. This intriguing movie is called Not Safe for Work, and I highly recommend it with a 5-star rating. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel if you want to see more of this video in your timeline. Until the next recap, take care.